Today we're going to talk about itinerary changes. We often hear of itinerary changes, so we are going to talk about some of the reasons that they happen, some things to think about if you have an itinerary change on your cruise, and also some things to keep an eye out as you're choosing an itinerary for a cruise that you are considering booking. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi there, this is Allison with Let's Go Travel Tips. Now, the reason that I want us to talk about itinerary changes is not only to help each other stay up to date as itinerary changes come out, and some of us don't receive notification whether we are on a cruise, that cruise or not, as well as just an idea if the same itinerary changes routinely happen on certain cruises so that we can all have a heads up about what may be to expect. And so to start talking about this, I thought I would mention that, as you are all aware, I'm sure there are lots of reasons that itinerary changes can happen. So frequently when a cruise has already started and there are itinerary changes, very often it is due to weather. Very occasionally, as we saw with Ensenada a couple of times last year, and I'm trying to remember if it happened with Mazatlan as well. Occasionally there can be violence in a port and the cruise ship is either able not to call at that port or else they call there and passengers are not able to get off. That is very much more of a rare occurrence, but every once in a while, like I said, you will have some weather impact your cruise, or it could be some mechanical problems with the ship. There's lots of different reasons, and based on the reason for the itinerary change, especially if it's for an itinerary change that occurs before you head out on your cruise, sometimes usually if the itinerary changes happens before you head out on your cruise, you're not going to get some onboard credit as a gift because of the itinerary change. But sometimes, depending on the cruise and the port that is missed, every once in a while a cruise line will give some onboard credit to the passengers on the ship that day, just as a saying sorry and here you go because of an itinerary change. So there are some things that came up recently that have made me think we really need to talk about this so we can all be prepared. There are, when we think of itinerary changes, when we think of rivers, itineraries can change due to water levels. When we think of Alaska, itinerary changes can happen from weather, and as we're going to see with one thing here, it can happen to with the migration of whales. So let's start off with a river cruise change just right here in the United States. One of our Let's Go family members let me know, and he is booked to sail on a brand new Viking ship, the Viking Mississippi, not until November 24th, which if you didn't know, the Viking Mississippi is their brand new riverboat. She was built to go on American rivers here in the United States, and she's very sleek design. She does not look like the old paddle wheels that, at least in my mind, I associate with river cruising in the United States, but she is a beautiful ship, and it is indeed on my list to be able to get to sail on her. But our Let's Go family member is booked to go from New Orleans to Memphis, but they can already tell where we are here, like right now in March, that there is going to be water level issues in Memphis, and so they are already making plans. And so instead of having passengers disembark in Memphis, they are actually going to have them disembark in a town called Rosedale, which is about a 2-hour drive to Memphis. So they have added an extra day to their itinerary. They'll embark those passengers in Rosedale. They will bus them up to Memphis. They are taking care of having a hotel for them that night. They will have excursions for them in Memphis, so they still get to see Memphis. And then passengers will be able to fly home after that. Our Let's Go family member said that he is using Viking Air. So Viking is taking care of rebooking the flight for him, everything with that. So that is a good reason to use Cruise Line Air, because if they have a change like that, they will take care of fixing it for you. And the other interesting thing I thought is he has done this same sailing the opposite direction from Memphis to New Orleans back in 2019 on American Cruise Lines. So of course this will be a different cruise line, American Cruise Line. They also do cruises on American rivers here in the United States. But I am really excited to hear about the the Viking Mississippi and how fabulous she surely is. I've looked at lots of pictures. I've seen some videos of the interior and the exterior. I think it's going to be an amazing cruise. But I think it's excellent that Viking is already looking at where they stand with the river levels there in Memphis and taking care of the problem so that the passengers know what to expect. It's with them adding an extra day. And by the way, they're not charging extra for that extra day. They're just adding that extra day so everyone can have it on their calendars. Now, another example of what can happen with itinerary changes is what happened in Monterey. The Monterey city there voted that they didn't want to offer the necessary, what did they call it, like the necessary services to cruise ships that come to visit Monterey. And so, which is basically saying they really don't want cruise ships coming there. So we are seeing lots of itineraries that used to have Monterey, California on them change. So most notably, I know that several of the sailings, I believe it's the Discovery Princess, like that we're seeing at the end of March and into April, was supposed to call in Monterey, and I have seen several itineraries have that replaced with going to Santa Barbara, California instead. I've been to Santa Barbara several times, and it is a beautiful place to visit. So I know that it's different than being in Monterey and everything that Monterey offers. But Santa Barbara is not chopped liver. It's a beautiful place to visit. And as we see often, if you make one itinerary change, then you have to make more itinerary changes. So they are having to arrange a few things a little bit differently with those sailings that have changed and taken Monterey off and added Santa Barbara. So be aware of that if you're on one of those cruises. Now this one I thought was really interesting. Sometimes I think cruise lines look at an overall itinerary, and especially these days when fuel is so expensive and everything else, Norwegian has announced several of their itinerary changes, which sincerely you could say easily is in a measure to save some money on their fuel. They've got a call that was supposed to be made in, did I bring it with me? That they were supposed to call in Roatan, Honduras on March 13th, and instead, just before they were set sail, that cruise sailed on March 11th, they announced that they were not going to be going to Roatan due to congestion at the port, that they were going to stop in Bimini in the Bahamas instead. So, well, and as you have probably heard, I looked at other channels about this and I read about it. Roatan, Honduras can handle like 4 or 5 ships a day. It's a big, big port. But the day that the Norwegian Joy was supposed to be there, there's just going to be one other ship there now. So you kind of wonder about port congestion in these situations. But I looked at the map, and Bimini, Bahamas is much handier. It's right on your way back to Miami there, very close, and so they're going to be in Belize, but it saves them going further to Honduras. It looked to me like that would be more mileage rather than heading straight back and stopping in Bimini on the way. So I think that sometimes cruise lines do that. They look at what's going on and like look at a way that they can maybe save a little bit of money, a little bit of fuel with it, and still have happy passengers. And I think that is perhaps what happened there. Now, a really interesting story though that was just released is Celebrity Cruises is going to have itinerary changes on their Celebrity Millennium that will be sailing in May of 2023 from Los Angeles to Vancouver. This is really interesting to me. So we often hear about whales migrating. And so the whales migrate along the coast there of the northwest coast, the Pacific coast there, from February to May. And so they ask that if cruise ships will please go 10 nautical miles an hour, I should say, along the coast there, because it lessens the probability of them hitting whales. There are a lot of whales that end up being hit by cruise ships, that especially if they're going too fast. And so Celebrity has said that they are going to follow the guidelines given by the what's it called? It's NOAA, the National Oceanic atmospheric administration and follow the guidelines that say you're going to go 10 nautical miles an hour there. And so they've had to alter some of their hours in their other ports to accommodate for that. And so instead of staying overnight in San Francisco, they're just going to visit San Francisco for one day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And their time in Catalina is now going to be from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. rather than from 8 to 5. So they lost an hour there. And then the ship's arrival time, they were going to get to Victoria, Canada at 11:15 in the morning, and they are going to now arrive there at 12:30 p.m. And so this only, like I said, just affects the sailings in May along that coastal area right there, because that is when the whales will still be there, and it is then the corridor there that that NOAA is making that request. And so I thought that was a good reason. I know, of course, if you drive slower, theoretically you save fuel, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's 10 knots. It just came to my mind. Not 10 nautical miles an hour, it's 10 knots is the speed. Anyway, but I think that, of course, you save money, as I was saying, if you, on your fuel, if you drive a little bit slower. But at the same time, I think this is for a really good reason, and I'm really pleased that Celebrity is doing that. So those are just some examples of reasons that we can have some itinerary changes. I think it's really important to be flexible, because what are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. It's like with the itinerary change we had on our Holland America cruise to Alaska. They took off Glacier Bay and Icy Strait Point, but what can I do about it? I'm just going to have to go and really enjoy where we are going. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, another thing that I wanted you to keep in mind as you are looking at itineraries, and so often, you look at a cruise line, and with all the itineraries, they'll have a map. And you look at that and think, oh, this is where I'm going to go. This is a heads up. Sometimes the map doesn't match the itinerary that is printed on the website. I've noticed this a few times now, so be very cautious when you are looking at the map and you are looking at the list of places that they say they are going. I would trust the list of places that they list off in the printed itinerary over the map. Like I said, every once in a while they don't match. So you might see something and think, oh, we're going to be going there. It's on the map. And so really pay attention to that printed itinerary. And it's not just on one cruise line that I see this. I've seen it several places, and it's made me pause and think how important it is to look at that printed itinerary. The other thing that I think is really, really hard is like we had a Let's Go family member let me know that they were planning to go on they went on a cruise that was supposed to call in Bora Bora. And in looking at the ship size that is allowed into Bora Bora, the ship size that they were on is not allowed into Bora Bora, but it stayed on the itinerary until it was within the window to go, like you'd already paid for it. And so I don't know what to tell you about that other than that just makes me sad that you buy a cruise hoping to go to other places on the itinerary, and especially if you choose an itinerary to go to a certain place. And I think a lot of that with the Mediterranean that I love so much, or with going on our Israel and Egypt cruise, I chose that because it's 3 days in Israel and 2 in Egypt. And so if they change that at the last minute, then I'll be really disappointed in that. But at the same time, we'll still go and still have a great time. But I wanted to give you a heads up about the map and the list on the itinerary. So finally, I just wanted to let you know, since we talked about the Viking Mississippi, that often, we don't always pause and think about the Great Lakes here in the United States as an amazing place to take a cruise. Well, last year they had a really good year. 2022 was like a record-breaking year for cruises there in the Great Lakes. And with everything the way it's lining up right now, it looks like 2023 is going to even break those records. So I thought it would be really fun for us to think about some of the places that they stop on those cruises, and also think about the ships and the different companies that will be sailing there. So and by the way, the cruise season there in the Great Lakes generally goes from like May to October, and so it's kind of a small window there, but there are lots of cruises. They're going to have 8, if you can believe it, 8 different cruise lines are going to be operating in the Great Lakes, and with 11 different ships. So you're going to have Pearl Sea Cruises, American Queen Voyages, Viking Cruises, St. Lawrence Cruise Lines, Ponant, Vantage, the Hapag-Lloyd, and plan tours cruises. Is that amazing? Some of those cruise lines I'm not even familiar with. I'll have to do more homework and learn about them. But I thought it was kind of fun to know that like one of the most stopped at ports is in Mackinac Island, Michigan. They're going to have 92 cruise ship calls this year. And it sounds like the people who live there are tickled because it is such a great economic support for them. Even going so far that in Michigan they talk about how we love the way we live here, and the cruise ships coming here enable us to keep living the way we like to live here. So I thought that was a really nice way to look at it. You've got the rest of the year from October to May without any cruise ships, but and mind you, these, when you think about these cruise ships, these are not like, it's not like having the Wonder of the Seas pull up. They are smaller they're smaller cruise ships than you have with those. Another really interesting thing that I thought is Detroit, Michigan. Detroit also has more than 50 calls on the schedule, and then the third most visited port in Michigan is Sault Ste. Marie. And anyway, just thought I would tell you, if you don't want to go so far, I know there are some people that don't like to fly to Europe, they don't want to fly to South America or Asia, but they would like to do a different cruise than they keep doing the Caribbean. Going to the Great Lakes, I think, is an amazing option, and it is beautiful there. So beautiful. I have not cruised on the Great Lakes, but I have seen Lake Superior from up there in Duluth. I grew up living 3 hours south of Chicago, so I got to see Lake Michigan there a lot. And then we've done some other travels to get to see more of the other lakes. Like, look at videos if you're wondering. And if you need help with that, I'm delighted to help you with that. Just send me an email. But I think this is really going to open some doors for a lot of people that want to sail out of places here in the US, and this gives you some really nice options. So if you have been on a cruise lately, or you're on a cruise, let us know. I'd love to hear how everything is going, the good, the bad. We all love, like I always, don't just send me an email when it's something bad. Tell me when things are going splendidly as well, because I honestly think that things are going much better than not good. I think there's way more good happening on cruise ships across the board. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. We really need you with us. We are really trying hard to get to 15,000 so that we can get to 100,000 subscribers this year. And if you appreciate these updates, please give this video a thumbs up. I'll be talking to you all again really soon. You all take really good care. God bless you. Love you. Bye-bye.